everybody. I am so excited because I get to talk about crypto today. And what a topic. Do you have a Satoshi Labs wallet? Are you thinking about getting one? If that is the case, you're going to want to listen. I'm so glad you could join me today to talk about all the scary things that can happen to a wallet and what people can do if they can't get into their wallet. So yeah, so could you take a couple minutes to introduce yourselves and what you do?
Sure. Real quick first, my name is Eric, co-founder and CEO of Unciphered. We are the world's first institutional company with a full know your customer and any money laundering check that opens crypto wallets for people who are locked out. Forgot their password, damaged device. So it's software wallets, hardware wallets. I have a background from Department of Energy and nuclear security and safeguards research. So basically I was hacking on tamper-evident devices and electronic systems, alarm systems to see if I could defeat them to help us find flaws ahead of time for treaty verification. Network engineering and exploitation way back in the day, had a pretty varied cybersecurity and physical security background. And last few years working with Tom and now Nick, we found after I've been cracking software wallets through my last company, Rift Recon, for quite a few years, because being in the Valley, you bump into a lot of people and is like the cybersecurity person who are like, can you help me? And a lot of the technology is just the same. There's no actual new novelty other than maybe like, EVM code, which is just a different language, but the same pen testing techniques really just do work in opening wallets. And so Tom and I decided to start a company. That's my little background. It's a little bit of Unciphered, but Nick, please.
Yeah, and Eric and I have been working together since, about 2017. And I kind of operate as the translator for folks who are coming in, not really knowing what situation they're in, dealing with a lot of technical folks on our end, and needing to meet them where they're at. So we take a lot of the technical jargon and a lot of the sales jargon and distill it down into something that people can not only like understand, but also that they can trust us to handle large amounts of money that they're going to have to turn over a huge amount of data in order for us to actually start getting access to that. So building trust and actually making sure that we are giving people enough information that they can feel safe with us actually taking that, rather than us being, well, some bad actors that are just signaling that we're trustworthy. So having those be things that we can follow through on, that's really where I come into the equation. And then Eric goes and backs it up with real legitimate tools and tactics, and unlocks their wallets and gets their money back, which is, I think, the real reason we're in this, is because we're trying to return liquidity to the market and get people back their life savings.
So what's one of the craziest things you've ever seen, or like one of the craziest situations that maybe
I mean, boat accidents are not uncommon. Hashtag boat accidents. No, actually, we've had people like really come, like, they're like, I dropped my laptop off a boat, and I'm like, actually, it's someone from Thailand. We support most countries. Actually, we've opened wallets from people in Vietnam, Sweden, Germany, a lot of places. But it was just like, oh, and it's like, if it's a spinning disk drive, you're almost pretty much gone. But that's one we're working on. But there's a whole slew of them. But if it's like solid state chips, we have a chance, like a really solid chance, actually, regardless of water damage. But Nick, I know you probably have some ridiculous stories of.
Well, the interesting thing is actually, without getting into specifics, because we see a lot of very crazy things happen, but we're also very guarded about our customers' data and their stories themselves, especially when dealing with recovery of wallets. The things that I find the most interesting aren't necessarily the craziest things. They're just like the reasons why people feel so attached to their crypto, or the reasons they need their crypto. I mean, we had someone who had coin on a wallet that they had Bitcoin, they had Ethereum, but then they also had some coins that like didn't really matter value wise, but they were so sentimentally attached to them because they mined them themselves. And they really wanted those coins off that wallet. But there was one person who actually did give us permission to tell his story, which is one of the testimonials that we actually have on our YouTube channel. His name's Brandon, and he got locked out of his wallet. He was using it as a repository for his coins while he was starting his business, which helped veterans get their first job in IT. And he ended up following the instructions to the letter, but they just weren't communicating what those instructions meant for what you had to remember. So he got locked out because he couldn't remember his 25th mnemonic. So it was his entire business that was stalled because he didn't have access to these funds when he needed it. So he came to us. Within a couple of days, I think we actually cracked that wallet while Eric was on the phone with him. And
I cracked it. I cracked it live on the phone. It's really kind of cool, actually. I was like, wait, hold on. But keep going.
And then after that, we were able to get him back his money, and he was able to not need to raise another round because he had access to his funds, which was just great.
So how hard is it to crack a wallet?
I mean, it really does depend. It depends on the wallet, depends on the situation, it depends on how it was locked. And also what's happened now. Certain tools, we have catastrophic vulnerabilities that we found that we can pop a wallet in literally 0.02 seconds. Others, it actually takes weeks, if not months, of actual R&D to develop the techniques to crack the wallet itself. And then at that point, we're still dealing with highly skilled folks that need to come in, who luckily work on our team, that need to be hands-on, especially with dealing with hardware wallets. I mean, we're dealing with man-in-the-middle attacks or some other proprietary techniques that I can't get into in public. But it really does run from instant and completely autonomous attacks to hands-on, this might work. Okay, hold on to your pants. Let's see if we can ride this roller coaster to the end kind of thing.
Wow. Okay. So can you comment on the largest amounts of money that have been in wallets that you've been able to recover or anything like that?
I mean, we have recovered in the 7 figures. People have approached us with larger, but for policy reasons, we don't go into those matters. Also for security and compliance and a whole bunch of things. And also, if we comment on those numbers, people can track down who those people are, and we keep that information very safe. So because everything's on the blockchain or blockchains, you're like, oh, there was that money moved. It's probably that person in this time frame, and so it's just we do not go into that for safety reasons for our customers. But we have opened a 7-figure wallet, and there's bigger ones that have come in, and I'll leave it at that.
There's also a rule that we have, which is any public-facing person at the company doesn't have any access or control over Unciphered's financials, which means that when we do recover, where the money goes and how it's treated, you see my face, you see Eric's face. We don't have access to those keys, and that's Eric has a background in anti-KNR, kidnap and ransom training for executive protection, and these are real threats. Like when you're dealing with large amounts of money, people definitely see that those are opportunities to take. So we definitely protect not only ourselves but our clients' safety as being the primary mode for why and the reasons why we're keeping secret that kind of information, especially because everything's on the blockchain and everybody can see everything.
Hadn't thought about that. But yeah, I know that people used to get kidnapped and then people basically hold them hostage until their bank account was drained with their ATM. So
I mean, it's still a thing. You read the news. It is a common thing in the US right now too, not just internationally. I don't want to comment on any specific things right now, but it's very Googleable.
So what should someone do if they can't get into their wallet? So how can, they contact you? What can you get into? What can you not get into?
I'll tell you, the first thing that they should do is stop trying to get into your wallet, especially if there is a password counter or if it is a hardware device that you're likely to break if you're not a professional, if you do not have a lab. Leave that device to the side. We had somebody who was I think we can talk about this. we had somebody who we did not work with.
I mean, there's more than one case like that, so it's like you can diffuse it a little bit.
Yeah, who came to us wanting us to get their wallet off of their hard drive. Their hard drive stopped spinning. They ended up cracking the case on the client intake call. They held up the platter itself. We're like, that's not, you've destroyed all the data on that. That is not going to work. So number one, don't try and recover it unless you know what you're doing. Otherwise you could lock yourself out permanently. And then contact us. And we have know your customer checks. We get people on MNDAs, so we can't share their data and they can't share our techniques. So it creates a two-way street of safety of information. And then we do anti-money laundering checks on their wallet. As long as they pass the KYC and the AML checks, then we can take their wallet and we hopefully will be able to get them access once again. That's it. Just go to Unciphered and get in contact with us.
I know you just got a testimonial that's coming out soon, and I listened yesterday and I was like, this is why we do what we do. But there was something at the end about like, it was so professional.
You got emotional.
I did.
Really emotional.
Well, I mean, I do what I do in cybersecurity because I like helping people and like really directly helping people, because cybersecurity is so distant often from like impact, and finding this work is like, if you can get it, it's like my thing with starting this was helping people, work with friends, get them compensated where they can just do this full time if they choose to, and work on the world's hardest technical problems in this space. And we're getting to do that. But I liked at the end because it's hardly recognized, but our work with our law firms actually, I think might be of importance where hardware delivery happens, because they brought it up and they thought that was like super professional. I don't know if you can cover that like concisely. I remember the customer was like about the law firm part. It was like, could you break that down? Because I think it's an important part for hardware for people to hear.
Yeah, why don't you do that actually?
Okay. So one of the things that we started in the beginning of the first year in 2021, like I've already been breaking software wallets for a long time. Tom brought in the hardware component to our business. He's been doing his work for 20 years on FPGAs and hardware acceleration for cracking broken cryptography implementations. But because of the life safety stuff, and also to make sure that we're legally insulated in many ways, we work with one of the world's large, actually it has for a long time been the world's largest law firm, that if anyone needs to get to us their hardware device, no one gets to visit our labs for various reasons. And so if it's a relatively smaller wallet on the lower end, in the 6 figures and below, or even 7 figures, we just have people mail it over FedEx or DHL. You can overnight it, and that has worked pretty flawlessly. But it goes right to one of our law firms, and we have one in every major city in the world. So it goes to there, and then we schedule a pickup on the back end, but it doesn't allow people to know where our labs are. And then if it's an extremely large wallet, we'll actually have people show up at the law firm. And we did this because for compliance, for secure chain of custody, and security. And we'll actually have security with us, and we'll intake with the customer. There's a whole process, which we actually have a bit of it online in YouTube, but we find that acting at the highest integrity and professionalism, that it allows us to work with everybody. So yeah, that's it. And the customer recognized that, and I thought it was really, I personally appreciated it, because we noticed we had to do it in 2021 while getting our compliance in order, and a lot of people are cowboys and cowgirls doing this, and we think it's a huge differentiator, but also make sure that nothing's lost, everything's tracked, everything's above board. And well.
Yeah, we're really trying to add law and compliance and process to essentially what right now is still a lawless industry.
Yeah, so you're like secret undercover agents in the crypto cybersecurity world.
No, there are those. That's not us.
There are those. Yeah,
But I
we're-
appreciate the connotation of like the mysticism, the legend, the lore.
Yeah,
Secret
we're trying
You could
to
be
show
our
our
hype
faces.
person.
We're trying to actually be the people that are trustworthy. That you know, if something did go wrong, enough of our information is out there. People know who we are.
Mhm.
So it's something where a lot of these other folks that we won't name or talk about that are cracking wallets, they're doing so completely anonymously. They're doing so without any compliance checks. They're doing so without any anti-money laundering checks or other checks. And they'll just crack a wallet if they can. And that's the one difference that we actually maintain as a pretty hard line is we will track or crack wallets of people's, we will crack wallets that we can legally and that we should legally. So we're not going to be, I won't even say the words, but we're not going to be cracking wallets of folks that are bad actors.
So you're not going to crack Putin's wallet.
We're sure he wouldn't come into the front door, but
Yeah.
we do have a lot of
Your
people.
door,
make
what would
attempts.
you do?
No, it's sorry, too difficult.
You don't have to answer.
It depends. Like we do have I'd say at least a third of the intake actually since day zero. Like the reason why we went through full compliance is someone ended up on a sanctions list that we found the first year for the State Department has the OFAC sanctions list and other things, and we check that every time automatically. And one of the people, the first 10 people that showed up when the first site went up after friends came in was someone associated for terrorism. That's it. And we're like, oh shit, we got to take this extremely seriously. And so we stopped the entire company for 7 months. Period. Got all our compliance, got everything in order, and then open up early in November later. That's why that happened. And so as a little like a bit of a quick story is I have a friend that got high 7 figures back. They got into crypto early, got their Bitcoin one year, but they anonymously contacted a wallet cracker. They took after the money was open, but they didn't know each other. There was no contract, and they used anonymous mailers. And I'm like he's an American, did all his paperwork, whatever, but like he literally does not know who cracked his wallet, and the guy didn't ask questions. So like we don't do that.
Okay, so the number one question on your YouTube is which is the safest wallet? Okay,
and Nick has a great answer for that.
I have a great answer. Because we're working sort of in the opposite direction as these wallet manufacturers or creators, we won't recommend any wallet for someone to use, because later on, for instance, like if we were to recommend a wallet and then 3 days later, after that goes public, we find a vulnerability and that wallet becomes the least safe wallet, then we're out there recommending the least safe wallet for all these folks, or any number of other scenarios that could happen. What we do say is, if you have a wallet and you're looking for it to be the most secure, keep it updated, keep informed on your wallet, make sure that you're paying attention to the vulnerabilities that are coming out with other wallets. Have Google alerts set up for the title of your wallet and vulnerability or exploit or hack, and make sure that you have those coming in so that if something does happen with your wallet, you know that, oh, I might want to move my money to a different wallet. We also do recommend going with some custodial wallet services. We're seeing over and over again that not your keys, not your crypto is not true all the time. So Eric can speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah. So one thing to consider is at this time, we support about 80% of the crypto hardware market. We're not going to go and we don't actually list half the wallets we can already break into. And that will come over time, and we're working through responsible disclosure patterns. But one thing I want to actually raise, which I tweeted recently, but coming from cybersecurity for 20 years, and if you look at our masthead, like one of the people who's like one of the core people behind responsible disclosure, Chris Weisopel, Spoke in front of Congress about taking down the internet with his group Loft, runs a static code, a code analysis company called Verico, the biggest in the world for that. And over time, he says cryptography is like, or like software is like spoiled milk. It curdles, it ages with time. It never gets more secure unless you patch it, especially cryptographic keys. But we've noticed that some people are responsible disclosure washing. And that's something, it's sort of like whitewashing. So we got attacked, and it's funny because it kind of helped our business, because people are like, who is this company and why are they bullshit? Which turns out we're not. And people are realizing that. And a lot of software and hardware crypto wallet vendors, open source projects lie. If you read their responsible disclosure policies about heavy NDAs, they don't post what their actual bounties are. Or like, we have a friend that found a big problem where they can enumerate every hardware wallet plugged in around the world by some DNS problem they had, because they let it lapse and they bought it. And then they had IP addresses connecting of all these hardware wallets around the world. So they can track everyone, any IP around the world when they plugged in, where those wallets were. He got $50 for that disclosure. It's like the cost of the domain was almost more than that. And so there are some really good hardware vendors, and we will not point names out, but in the future, we're going to be running a blog series called Bad Bounty. We got attacked where people said, oh, you're not doing responsible disclosure. I'm like, yeah, we're not, because it's not responsible disclosure with what their policy says. So no, we're not. They're lying to customers. There's some out there that have halved their pricing. And then also some have actually made all our attacks ineligible, that we can even open a device in 1 second without naming names. We have more things we can do to it, but they now say we're never going to get paid again. I'm like, so what about your customers? So you're just going to let the device be vulnerable all the time? And these are things we look at. So I kind of meandered around your question, but I think it's hopefully insightful for how customers should think about people saying most open source, most most secure. And I'm like, is it really?
I can say that if you're looking for the most secure wallets, the best solution is always going to be to look at third parties that audit wallets, and multiple of them. Don't look at an individual company that got hired for one wallet audit from one company, because often they'll cherry pick those that will just be nice to these wallets. And that's
we get asked by most of the vendors now, and we flatly turn them down because they're like, we want to collaborate. And I'm like, okay, that means you don't really want an audit. You just want a stamp from our brand, and we won't be doing that.
Yeah. So,
and then they found out they go to other ones and we're like, oh, they wanted the stamp.
Yeah. Companies that don't just give those rubber stamp approvals, but that actually dig in and not just the hardware, but also doing software audits, doing code audits, to find out for yourself, because you can ask 100 people, 1,000 people what their opinions are, to dive in and find out for yourself by looking through these other third-party audits and these other wallets and doing the apples to apples comparison yourself. That's the only true safer way to go about this. It's not safe. There's always going to be vulnerabilities that are coming out. Every time your phone gets an update, every time your laptop gets an update, those are vulnerabilities that are being patched. So this is always a constant battle for being more secure. And like Eric was saying, when you have code just sitting there and you don't change it, especially when it comes to cryptography, it will never become more secure on its own. So if you have a bunch of coins sitting in a wallet that's been there since 2014, what can we say? That code has not been getting stronger, but I'll tell you what has been getting stronger. All of the people who have been trying to crack it, they've been getting better at cracking that code. They've been getting better at cracking wallets. And if that code's been sitting there all that time, it's more likely to have an exploit already ready than something that came out last year from a trusted vendor.
The point of hopefully my last point, which is, and I will name names here, is Satoshi Labs and OneKey we proved earlier this year that we can crack every Trezor device sold, period. And they're still selling bad devices. They're claiming new chips coming out, but until they do that, we can crack every Satoshi Labs product, Trezor 1, Trezor T, all of them, even historical ones. One key is the same. The Ledger Donjon team gave a talk at Hardware. They proved they could crack every single one in the future, so they have to change their chips. Those companies are trying to, I guess, responsibly disclose wash. It's the problem, and the problem is on the liability of the customer, and we find that wildly unethical. So, I mean, that's the only comment I will give, and we will give at Unciphered is like we will hold people to test, and if they can be fixed with it. We also show we do responsibly disclose and help the products get better. Over time, you're going to see, I think, a washing of hardware, hardware and software wallets. Over time, there's going to be a reputation, and that people will march with their crypto and dollars to finding something that's more secure. Yeah, a good example of people, companies and people doing the right thing is the Ledger Donjon team, their hacking team at the company testing products. We found out for 6 months last year was approaching, and it's in their talk at a conference called Hardware that just came out. Their slide deck's out. I think the video's out. Great technical talk, but anyone who's not technical will completely miss all the points. And it's just not your field. It's okay, but they had a slide that said we have 3 different ways to break their product permanently until they change their chip. It turns out they even said that they responsibly disclosed for 6 months and were categorically ignored. And so like that's not responsible disclosure. So they decided to, after the disclosure period, which they gave, normally it's 90 days. Ours is the most aggressive in the world. If no one responds, it's 7 days if it's an active attack that's online that we see. Hardware is different, but they waited 6 months, which is insane. And I don't know. It's I don't know how to say that that's not a good look in the industry or something to look up to.
Aren't those guys awesome? I mean, I know where to go now if I have a problem, if I drop my wallet, phone, my laptop off the deck of a yacht or something. But yeah, I think those guys are amazing. And I actually really love their work so much that I partnered with them. So they are a partner of SheCrypto. So if you can't get in to your wallet, if something happens, if you forget, the secret code, then definitely contact me and I will put you in touch with Nick and Eric.